All right. Habari za Sabui, Habari za Mchana, Habari za Jioni, brothers and sisters all over the world. Kakas and dadas and kakas all over the world. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. The name of this channel is The African Times, and I'm Thomas. All right, everybody, I'm talking to you. I'm talking to each and every one of you all over the world, and I hope that things are going well. This is a breaking news update. It seems that there are African nations that are trying to decide whether or not English should be the official language of the country. And there's a they distinguish the official language from national language. So let's take a look at that. Official language, and the decision that they're making is that the official language for education, schooling, from say kindergarten through high school, will be English in countries that are African, people that look like me and you, look like you and me, but their native tongue is not English. But from kindergarten through high school, in some cases, sometimes just high school, the education and the teaching of the education will be done in English. Now, the details of this kind of important, but kind of not important. What really matters here is the implications of a decision like this. For example, if you say that high school, middle school, or grade school, the only language that can be spoken for instruction, in other words, to teach your children, they must be taught in English. It's not their native tongue. That would mean that, one, they would have to have learned that very early so that concepts, educational concepts in math and science and so forth can be explained to them in such a way that it doesn't impair their ability to learn it. Now, that's just one obstacle, one barrier. The other barrier deals with the cultural impact, the impact on the person's psyche, the psychological impact affecting the person's self-esteem and their outlook on the world. Now, there are a couple of arguments that seem to be going forward. One is that if you train the children in English, English is the dominant language of the world business-wise. So if you want to do international business, you want to do business globally, then it's helpful to you to learn, know, and understand English, and that has some merit. That's true to a certain extent. The other side of it is, well, if you learn English, you can learn it not as the main educational language that you teach your children. In other words, they must learn in class in English, but you can teach it as a second language. In other words, they learn everything that they learn in their own language, and you require them to become proficient in a second language, and you choose that language to be English. Now let's look at the second one first. Using English as a second language. In other words, let's say you go to school, kindergarten through high school, even kindergarten through college, and you're learning, the teachers are teaching you in their native tongue. Whatever African language is considered to be the national language, the language most people in the country speak. Well, you get your degree, you get your diploma, you graduate from kindergarten or what have you, and you've been instructed in your native tongue. But what would be required is that you also learn throughout the years of your education a second language. Not the official language. The official language would still be your native tongue, but that you learn a second language. Now, where I'm from in America, when you go to college, the college I went to, and I think maybe many of them, require you to take a second language. It's not that you become proficient in it, but you at least have to take enough to where you pass, where I was from, 2 courses, 2 semesters, so that you can at least get a good understanding of the language enough to be able to communicate basically in the language. And from what my understanding, places like China and France, maybe Germany, I don't know about the UK, some of you can tell me, that's the approach they take. They still keep their native tongue as the official language. You're going to go to school. If you go to school, you're going to learn in their language. But they require their students to also learn a second language. And it could be a second language like French or Spanish or English or whatever. Korea, I think they do it too. Now, and in America, they do it. Now, the other side of it, remember I just told you the second one first. Now I'm going to do the first one. The issue that you want to change the language of the official language of your citizens while they're being educated to a foreign tongue. So the teachers in the classroom must talk to them in the foreign language. No one is allowed during school hours to speak in their native tongue. Now, I don't know any of the great powers doing that. I know in America they don't do that. Now you go to college in America, they speak in English. Germany, France, China, Russia, I think they speak their native tongue. And in the Middle East, they speak their native tongues. And here's the thing for me. They're doing this, and they've been able to obtain all of their goals nationally, for the most part. Some of these places, great powers, have been able to reach great heights technologically, educationally, financially, scientifically, speaking their native tongues. But somehow, us, people that look like you and me, people that look like me and you all over the world, seem to have developed this opinion, this attitude that somehow we're better off giving up our language for someone else's language. Even if you're only talking about officially the education that you would use to educate your children. You speak to them mathematically, scientifically, in English. Okay? Now I speak English because I grew up in America. But there's a problem when you do that. The problem is that ultimately, in the minds of our children, they can begin to develop an appreciation, a desire, an attitude, an opinion that the other language that our people told them they should covet more than their own is superior to theirs. Well, when you do that, you also, language, you must understand, when you do that, you also take the language, which is reflective of your culture, your identity, and you replace the culture and the identity, you replace it with a foreign language, culture, and identity through replacing the language. And if you're not careful, over time, the people in the nation will adapt the foreign language because it's tied to what they believe is economic and financial security, prestige, they'll become so desirous to understand and learn that language that they'll actually choose to speak that language over and above their own. So they will aid in their own destruction, their own self-destruction of their culture, language, and identity, because culture and identity are tied to your language. It's your language. Then, just as an example, if you take English, for example, you want to speak English, well, you start seeking ways to learn it. You start looking at American cultural art forms, American cultural media. You start to believe that American inventors, scientists, teachers, doctors, lawyers, politicians are superior to your own and have a superior outlook and philosophy on life and ideology. And when you do that, now you've aided again in the destruction of your own culture. You remove your value system and replace it with their value system. That's the danger of taking someone else's language and substituting it for yours. You can still do that through the second kind of point that I explained, where keep your language, the main language, the official language, the national language, and just require your students to learn a second language. And they can choose whichever one they want. And just to give you a little history on it so you understand fully, there were periods in time where if you wanted to study a particular area, you had to study it in the language of the people who were dominant in that field at that time. Take, I think, Germany, for example. Germany, at one point, you had to, if you wanted to study one of the fields, I forget which field it was, but if you want to study it, you had to kind of study it in German. Because Germans were considered the leaders in that field. Latin was another one back in the day. You know, in some cases, they even, I think in the medical field, some of these terms that they're throwing about with doctors are in Latin. The whole point is, and you shouldn't get bogged down into the is it the right decision? Is it the right? The details of that don't really matter. What matters is these people will destroy your culture. They will have you aiding and abetting in destroying your own culture and developing a desire to learn their culture. That's why we have so many brothers and sisters running around here loving the W's and loving capitalism. You hear them say, oh, that's business. Yeah, you know, it's business, it's business. No, business is not what these people tell you. Take advantage of other people so that you can get rich. No, you don't have to do that. No, you work together with each other in harmony as a group to benefit the group as a society, not the individual. Not the individual. That's what leads to poverty. And you see it's happening right now all over the world. And so that you people who are striving so hard to learn English, please understand and know that English Empire, first Britain, France, Britain, United Kingdom, that came to an end. But the people who took over after that, the Americans, they spoke English because they were with those people, from those people. Well, that empire is coming to an end. So America and English is not going to be the dominant language of business in the future. And quite frankly, it might not be that right now. You might consider it Mandarin. And I'm not saying give up your language to now let's all learn and speak in Mandarin. No, that's not what I'm saying. You don't have to do that. You respect yourself. You keep your language the dominant language, but you just learn the second language so you can do business in that area. And you choose which one is beneficial for you at that moment. And keep in mind, let me just say, because this is very important to understand, you don't have to give up your language and culture to be successful in business. You don't have to do that. So don't do it. Haven't you noticed some of these people, when they speak publicly, they don't even speak English? I'm talking about the leaders of different countries and nations. They don't even speak English. They refuse to. They know how to speak English, but they refuse to do it because they're letting those people know your culture is not the dominant culture and the culture to be desired. No, we have our own culture. We have pride and dignity, and we'll speak in our language. You want to understand us? Get an interpreter. So we as brothers and sisters, as a family, people that look like me and you, got to regain and recapture our self-esteem, our self-identity, and our self-culture. Value it, promote it, so that our children love it, desire it, and are proud of it, so that it doesn't disappear over time and we become clones of these other people. Okay, I hope you understand that was some breaking news. Africans are kind of trying to decide whether or not English is going to be the dominant language in their school system. Let's hope they make the right decision. It's not up, you let me know what you think in the comments. I already kind of give you an idea of the dangers. All right? Okay, everybody, just a real quick message for you. Uhuru. Uhuru. Uhuru.